Hi guys, how are you doing and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up OPNsense Firewall running on VMware. In my lab environment, I'm running VMware as a hypervisor. If you've been following my videos or my blog, you know that I am running pfSense as a firewall as well in my lab environment. But today I want to have a look on how to install OPNsense as a firewall on VMware and what are the basic steps you need to take. What are the basic configuration steps you need to take in order to get you started with OPNsense and have it running and providing internet access to your lab environment. Let's get into it. So let's go and get the latest version of OPNsense. This is the website opensense.org, and the latest version as of today is 24.7. That's the latest version of OPNsense. Let's download that. Let's go to download, and we will select the system architecture. That's AMD 64. That's fine. The boot, I will do the DVD because the DVD will give me an ISO file. That's the file I need in order to install OPNsense from on my VMware platform. So click on download and then make sure that you store this file somewhere safe before we can upload it to the data store in vCenter. Okay, let's create a new virtual machine. This is the OPNsense virtual machine we will be creating. Give it a name and a location, of course, where you want to store it. This is my computer resource. That's fine. Select the data store where you want to store the actual virtual machine. Select the compatibility mode. As you can see here, I am running a little bit behind on my latest version of ESXi, but for this video, that's not a problem. Click on next. Select the guest OS family. That should be other, because then you will have the option to select FreeBSD 14 or later, and then make sure that you select the 64-bit version here, of course. So this is the guest OS version now. Click on next. I will give my virtual machine 2 vCPUs and 8 GB of RAM. Give it a little bit of disk space. Let's go for 20 GB, and I will tin provision that because this is a lab environment. For the network, the first network will be the internal network. This is the internal LAN network, so to speak, from this virtual machine's perspective. Let's give it a WAN interface as well. And the WAN interface in my case, that's the test lab. 2 interfaces connected here. One will be the internal network. This is the LAN part as the OPNsense firewall will see. And then we have the other interface, that's the test lab one. This is the WAN interface from this OPNsense perspective. So we are good with that. Let's click on client device and connect that ISO file we already uploaded to our data center. Select OPNsense ISO, as you can see there. Click on OK. Make sure that you check the box connected power on. This will make sure that when the virtual machine boots for the first time, it will actually boot from the ISO file, and that's what we need. So let's click on next and finish and wait for vCenter to create that virtual machine. As we can see now, the virtual machine has been created and we are ready to go and start it up and install OPNsense. So let's move on and click on power on. Once the virtual machine has been powered on, let's click on that web console so we can see what's actually happening. And let's wait for the virtual machine to boot. And the nice thing is with OPNsense, it will boot a live environment. So this is very handy if you want to do some troubleshooting or if you want just to test some things out. So it will boot up now. It will be a live environment, and then we have to enter a specific command in order to start the installer and make sure that it installs on the disk connected to this virtual machine. So for now, let's wait for the interfaces to come up and continue with the installation. It is starting the GUI. Unbound is starting as well. And there we are. The live environment has been started. So now we need to log in. Let's do that. And if we log in, well, that's as you can see here, You can continue in live mode. This is the mode if we need to do some troubleshooting, as I said. But if we log in as the installer user, well, that's the trigger for OPNsense actually to start the installation of OPNsense on the connected disks in this virtual machine, or the physical hardware, of course, if you're using that. So let's log in with the installer user. Give it the password. This is default OPNsense. And as you can see here, now the actual installer starts. Let's continue with the default settings. We are not going to do something special here. We will do the ZFS one because in a future video, I will show you how to create ZFS snapshots of OPNsense before actually changing something or doing an upgrade. That's very handy, of course, if you need to roll back a update. So I will do the install ZFS for now. It will scan the disks, and because I only have one disk, one VMDK connected to this virtual machine, I will have no redundancy. If you're using a physical appliance, for example, and you have several disks in there, you can choose, of course, the RAID configuration here. It will give you that high availability option, of course. So I'm going for no redundancy. That's the first option. And I will select the disk. That's my VMware virtual disk. And I know that it will destroy everything in there on that disk. That's fine. Click on yes, or select yes and press enter, of course, because you cannot click here. And let's wait for the system to actually finish the installation. And there we are. The installer has completed. I will not change my root password. I will leave it at the default, which is username root password OPNsense, because this is a demo, a lab environment. That's fine. Of course, you should do this if you're using it in another setup besides using it as a demo. So I will just select the complete install and press enter and wait for the system to reboot. Now, if after the reboot, it will not be the live environment, because the installer has made sure that during the boot process, it will detect a OPNsense installation on the disk, and it will start up that OPNsense installation on the disk. So let's wait for it to load, and then we can continue. And there we are. It has loaded up from the disk. As we can see here, there is no message anymore about being a live in a live environment. And actually, we can now access the GUI from this IP address. So this is a Windows machine I'm running, and let's see if I can actually reach that OPNsense. Yes, there we are. It is a self-signed certificate. That's fine. Click on proceed. And now we can log in using that root user and the default password, which is OPNsense. Of course, change this in a production environment. Okay, so let's wait for the wizard to start up. This is one of the first things you need to do after the basic installation steps has been completed using that ISO file. The first time you log in, you need to follow the wizard in order to do some configuration. So click on next. Give it a host name. OPNsense is fine. I like it to be lower cases. And I like this to be a lab domain. I will change my primary DNS server to the DNS server I'm running on my WAN site, because that's the DNS server I'm going to use in my lab environment as well. This should be the DNS server you're going to use on your WAN site. It can be your ISP or the so-called WAN interface if you're doing this in a lab environment, of course. One DNS server is fine. I will say let's override it with DHCP. That is okay as well. I will enable the unbound resolver, and I will show you additional configuration steps for unbound in a minute. Let's click on next. And the time server, that's okay as well. I want to select Europe, Amsterdam for the time zone. Click on next. And for the WAN interface configuration, if you have specific steps like a VLAN or PPPoE configuration, you can do it here. I'm not going to do that. I will deselect these two options for the WAN interface because I will be using OPNsense in a lab environment. That means that my WAN interface has private network IP addresses. If I don't deselect it, if I leave this enabled, I will not be able to, it will basically not route internet, right? Because it will block all connections going from the WAN to private ranges. So make sure in the WAN interface, in the setup wizard, you deselect these two options. Let's click on next. The LAN IP address, that's fine as well. You can change it, of course, here. After the reboot, you have to make sure that you then can reach, of course, that LAN IP address in order to reach the interface. So let's click here on next. I will leave the root password as is. Click on next and click on reload. And let's wait for the system to reload the changes and see what the dashboard tells us. Okay, let's continue to the dashboard. Now, the first things I do when I install OPNsense is, of course, after the wizard completes, I want to set up my unbound DNS resolver. And in this case, I am going to enable unbound DNS resolver to use DNS forwarding, to use forwarding mode and not the resolver mode, because this is a lab environment. Resolver mode is not working. Unbound is not able to reach those root DNS servers on the internet. So it has to forward everything to my local DNS, so to speak. That's the DNS server which is available on my WAN interface. So let's go to Unbound. Then let's continue here. Click on Query Forwarding. Make sure that I say that I will forward all the queries to my system name servers. This is the name server I entered configured on the WAN interface as well. So when you select it, click on Apply, wait for it to reload. And now we should be able to resolve DNS queries using the Unbound server, because it's now forwarding everything to my main local DNS server in my whole network. So let's see if that's working. Open up a command prompt real quick. Let's see if this workstations has the DNS server. Yes, that's the DNS server. That's the OPNsense DNS server. Now let's see if we can do a ping out to Apple. And there we are. Unbound is now resolving DNS queries as well, because I've enabled that forwarding option. That's something you will probably need if you're running OPNsense in a lab environment, which is using your primary DNS server, which is the DNS server you're running in your main network, right? So this is the option we need to enable. So this is one of the first things I enable to make sure that internet is working now for every device, every virtual machine. I will be connecting to that internal LAN network of OPNsense. So this is fine. The other thing I set up is I disable IPv6 because I'm not using IPv6, and the way to do it in OPNsense is go to interface, go to the several interfaces you have set up here, and then you can see here that we have a static IP for the LAN interface for the IPv4 version. For the IPv6 version, we want to disable it. Select none and then click on save. We'll do the same on the WAN interface as well. Go to WAN and then go to the IPv6 configuration and select none and then click on save. Okay. And then we can apply changes, and it will make sure that it will not generate IPv6 addresses for the loopback as well, because I'm not using IPv6, and I know that if you're not using it, but it is still enabled, it can, it can generate some errors in your network, which will make it just difficult to troubleshoot. That's why for a lab environment, I know I'm not using IPv6, so I am completely disabling that. Let's go to the firewall and also click on the rules. And then we need let's go to the LAN interface and delete the IPv6 rule here, because default out of the box, it will be enabled. This is the rule which is installed default from after the installation of OPNsense. I will not disable it, I will delete it. And in this way, I can make sure that no IPv6 traffic is passing through my OPNsense firewall. And let's go to firmware. And let's go to updates, because I want to make sure that my OPNsense firewall is running the latest version of everything, of every package in there. So let's make sure that I can check on updates. Click on the status tab. So once again, go to system, go to firmware, click on updates, go to the status tab. Let's click on check for updates and wait for it to check for updates, and it will present you with a list of packages it needs to upgrade. So this is the list of packages it will upgrade. And well, that's a nice message from the OPNsense team. Stay safe, of course, thank you. But we'll click on close and scroll down, because you see that the packages are already now in the list with the required action upgrade. So all these packages will be upgraded. You will have the latest version of everything. That's perfectly fine. That's what we want. So scroll down to the lists and click on update option. And let's wait for the system to update all the packages. After the update, it will reboot and we will be able to access the GUI again. So let's wait for the process to finish. So the upgrade has finished. It is now rebooting. Let's wait for it to finish the reboot cycle. Then we'll be able to log in again. And now we will have everything updated, all the packages up to date. That's very nice. And there we are. Let's log in with our default username password still. Now, if we go to our system, let's make sure that we have all the updates installed. Go to firmware and then the updates section, and then click on the status tab. Click again on check for updates. It should tell us that everything is up to date and there are no updates, and that's fine. So here we can click on close, and the next step is to click on the plugins, because we need to install the VMware tools for OPNsense. So go to the plugins tab in the same section, the system and the firmware section. And now we will have to install the VMware tools. Click on the plus sign and wait for it to install the VMware tools. And in my experience, after it has completed this step, let's go and reboot the system. So in the left side in the menu, click on power, select reboot, and let's say yes, we want to reboot the OPNsense firewall. This will make sure that OpenVM package we just installed will also be activated. And now the vCenter, your vCenter will be able to communicate with that virtual machine, that OPNsense instance. That's what we want. So let's wait for it to finish and then continue. And here we are after the installation of the VMware tools package. Let's log in real quick. Make sure that everything is up and running. Yes, everything is okay. All the services are okay. If I go back to my vCenter, I should see, yes, and there it is. I can see the version of the VMware tools, which are running in the OPNsense virtual machine, and also it's reporting configuration options from within the virtual machine in vCenter. So this tells me that the VMware tools are up and running in the virtual machine and working perfectly fine. And there we are, OPNsense running in a virtual machine on VMware. And now that I have it running and set up in a basic setup, I'm thinking of a lot of new things and a lot of cool things I can do with this. So that means I will be making some videos in the future using OPNsense and specific configuration options there are, and see how it works, how it behaves. And I'm also curious to know if you guys are running OPNsense maybe. And if you are, what are the benefits? Leave it in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to click on the like and subscribe buttons below this video. It helps out my channel a lot and helps me to keep making these kinds of videos for you guys. Of course, if you have comments, leave it in the comment section. I'll get to them as soon as possible. And see you soon in the next video. Take care. Bye.